Good evening, everyone. So I'm Chanchal Mishra, Manager Coordination I India, and for the webinar, you all the participants will be on mute. You can share your questions via question tab. If you want to say something and want to speak, please raise hand. We'll allow if we have time and possible to speak to the speaker directly. Now hand over to Madhvi ma'am. Madhvi ma'am.
Thank you, Chanchal. Hello, everybody. Please join me in welcoming CA Nachiket Dev. He is a chartered accountant and also alumni of IIM Ahmedabad. He is partner with PG Bhagwat since last 15 years and is looking after statutory audits of corporates and banks. Nachiket has been on the study group set up by ICI for formation of guidance note on CARO 2020. He is member of expert committee on bank audits, again set up by ICI. He has also been on the study group set up by ICI for formation of guidance note on bank audits 2018 to 2021. Additionally, he is member of FRRB ICI and ex-member of India's transition group of ICI. He has also written many papers on bank audit in WIRC ICI publications. So today Nachiket is going to share the critical changes with respect to CARO 2020 with us. Welcome Nachiket, and over to you.
Thank you, Madhavi. Good evening all. I hope it would have been live session, but because of a corona pandemic, we are having this session online. I would also like to thank Nikhil, Samir, and entire II forum for giving me an opportunity. On a topic,
Nachiket, will you start?
Yeah. So, am I audible? Hello.
Yes.
Yes, Nachiket, you're audible.
Yeah. So, should I start again? Am I audible?
Yeah. Please carry on.
Yes, you're audible. You can start again.
Yeah. So thank you for this opportunity, and I would like to thank Madhvi, Nikhil, Samir, and entire II forum. I wish it would have been a live session where we can see each other, but because of the corona, okay, let's start on this platform. So I am here to present CARO 2020. And today, along with me, my colleague Shreya will be also there. So we both have prepared one presentation for you, and I hope it will be useful for you. So can we move ahead? Yeah, Shreya. So
Yes,
CARO 2020. Yeah, I purposefully make the subtitle as enhanced reporting obligations. So when I'm talking about the CARO 2020, there is a vast difference between what used to be earlier CARO and now what we are seeing. And probably industry as a whole or the practitioner as a whole also taken this very seriously, and people are trying to match up that particular scale up. So that is why it has been deferred for 2 times. And in my presentation today, what I would like to exactly cover how much is the enhanced reporting obligation by way of just see first current context, then we will have an introduction to CARO 2020, then we will see some clauses which are very much different. The perspective is different. So in the third point, analysis of clauses, and fourth one is a conclusion. So can we go to current context? Yeah. So before going to the CARO 2020, let's understand what is the current situation, or we can say a perception in general, and what people are feeling about it. So companies are failing overnight, and people are saying that there is a corporate governance which is lacking. There is a poor corporate governance, and most of that people are also saying, including some of the regulators, that auditors are missing glaring signs. So what are the signs? Is specifically there are some accounting shenanigans. There are some one-off event, exceptional events, which have led us a huge profit in a particular year. which is missing, and overall there is a trust deficit for the stakeholders. So when I was reading one book, which is excellent book per se, there is a specific statement. I will read it. An annual report should be seen as an iceberg in terms of information it contains. It cannot tell you all you need to know about a company, but if there is something in that which makes you feel uneasy, rest assured that there may be some another even more uncomfortable things lying below the metaphorical waterline. So what it says that when there is some kind of tips, or it's just a tip of iceberg, when you are saying that there is some uncomfortable things, or there is something which is not correct on the financial statement per se, there must be some other or huge which is sitting behind this particular thing. So when I'm talking about the general perception of the public, when public is saying that, okay, the people who the stakeholder or the shareholders or common investors, what is their view? So who are the stakeholders? So when I'm saying shareholders, there is an increase. What they want is increased trustworthiness. So right now, what is coming as a part of audit report is a standard template. Everybody says that we are complying with the auditing standards, which is a part of a mandatory Companies Act standard requirements. Everybody says the accounts are true and fair. Everybody says that, okay, all the procedures have been complied except some qualifications and all. But in general, shareholders are feeling that we are not interested in this particular standard templates. What is a reasonable assurance? Probably the accountants, chartered accountants, TCWG members can debate, but people are feeling that there should be a increased trustworthiness in this particular process of audit. Then when I'm talking about the TCWG, which is probably audit committee or a board of directors, what they want to say, you have to reduce the communication gap. The expectation from TCWG is that you are sitting with them, you are sitting with the management, you are there, you have every access to all the books of accounts, every event. So you should communicate to us what is the glaring signs. If at all there is something going wrong, you should give us that particular hint at that point in time, instead of after 4 or 5 years when some regulator comes and then he says, oh, there is a problem in the accounts, and now the account auditing has not been done in a particular way it should have been. So all these things should be communicated to us earlier. In terms of a stakeholder in the banker states, what they are more interested in protection of their interest is in terms of a going concern and the end use of money. So they are really concerned about their credit lines, and their perception is we are not getting enough information from the auditors, and so we could not conclude. So on the regulator side, what regulator wants is auditors should be more vocal. They should speak out. They should give certain kind of indications to the shareholders and even to the government. And the society at large actually wants transparency. So all these views are there before this CARO 2020. At the time of framing of CARO 2020, these regulators probably have taken all these views into consideration, and then only they have drafted this particular CARO. So look at this particular speech of PM Modi as well on November 2019, that we must challenge the frauds. Both internal and external auditors need to find innovative methods to catch frauds. So we must encourage the core values of the auditors for the same. So look at this particular clause, very potent message given to us as an auditor. So probably that this is the basic premise on which now new CARO 2020 has been drafted. So it's not about only CARO 2020 which is going a sea change. Auditor's report is which is going a sea change. There is a entire changes which is happening in the entire corporate ecosystem. If we consider first as a preparers of the financial statement, then SEBI has come out with the integrated financial reporting point. Right now it is recommendatory, or sooner it may become mandatory, which also requires more degree of information sharing. Then on the TCWG, those charged with governance audit committee, there are rules, new rules are coming up, or the independent directors. There are continuously new amendments which are coming on the corporate governance side in the form of LODR amendments. Third, internal auditors, the new standards have come up, reliance by statutory auditors, and the appropriateness of the statutory internal auditors has to be specifically commented by statutory auditors. So that is there. Fourth, external auditors, yes, the new reporting obligations, CARO 2020 has been already framed out. Fifth, credit rating agencies, there are new set of rules for monitoring, all that has been changing. Regulators, there are new NFRA reports, FRRB, QRB, everyone is coming out with the reports. There is a QRB report which was published last year, which also says that almost 68% of the audit on the audit quality basis, they are only seeing the audit quality per se, and they are saying the 68% cases, there is a tremendous improvement required in the audit. 6% have required significant improvement in the audit. So all this is, there is a huge changes which are going on, and the objective is obviously enhancing a degree of confidence of stakeholder which is somehow lost in between. There are multiple failures. I need not name them their names, but you know that. But all these changes are happening just to enhance a degree of confidence of a stakeholder. So Shreya, next. So now with this, probably the principles of CARO I would like to touch upon. CARO 2020, one thing is, yes, it has been extended, it has been postponed, and now applicable from financial year 2020, 21-22, and applicable to all of the companies except certain exceptions which are as very limited or very small companies per se, and the total number of clauses of 21. So some of the members here can recollect Mao Caro. So that was there. Then there is a transition to the Caro. Then there is a transition after companies like amendment Caro 2013, then 15, and now this particular Caro has a 21 clauses. So what are the basic principles? If I generally wants to glimpse eye view of these particular principles, let's look at the principles. So first principle is detailed reporting obligations. So if you see a particular clause, there are, I will go to one by one, but the message is very clear that it wants a detailed reporting obligation. If the certain thing is not there, why it is not there, and how what is the quantum, and without giving a materiality or sampling scope, they are asking us to report this particular thing. Although the guidance note by ICAI has mentioned about the materiality or sampling in some of the cases, but I doubt it will sail through or there. The third point is there are some straightforward to the point questions. There are direct questions on the Benami properties. There are direct questions on the frauds. So these I will take you through. Then there are judgment or estimate. So once we are saying that something like, for example, whether the investment made or loan given to the subsidiary companies or other companies, whether they are prejudicial to the interest of the company, or a particular clause wherein we have to opine on the going concern assumption or the material uncertainty assumption. So we are making highly judgmental calls. So once what is the requirement is, there is a clear shift of expectations from the auditors. Also, there is a consistency in reporting. Some of the clauses, they have given a specific format. Either it was given by a guidance note. Now Caro himself has given the format to report the particular things. For example, Imur properties, Benami properties, they have a specific format. So they have tried to maintain the consistency in reporting. So change in mindset, yes, I talked about. So first of all, let's think on this particular thing, that we have to now shift ourselves from hindsight information to foresight information. Up till now, we were supposed to talk on the financial statement. We have to give a reasonable assurance on the transaction which has happened in the balance sheet. But now we have to shift from the hindsight information to foresight. So we have to consider what is the management plan, what is the board plan, what is what is the AOP, what is the ratios, and then we have to opine on the foresight on next 12 months whether this particular entity will survive, whether it will be able to fulfill all the liabilities. So this shift from hindsight information to foresight information is a main principle of CARO 2020. Obviously, this has led to increase in tremendous responsibility of the auditors, and also wherever you are having a qualification, in some of the cases they have asked us the reasoning for such clause. So with this, these are the broad sets of principles when we talked about the CARO 2020. Yeah, next. So what is the impact on audit per se in general? So what CARO 2020 means to us as an auditor? First of all, advanced planning. We can't just give this particular CARO report as a template. We can't do last minute, print out this CARO report, because I have seen some of the practitioners which have hardly spending any time on the CARO. Is just a copy paste formula. It is not so now. So there has to be a robust risk assessment. When I'm talking about some of the clauses, I will share you. We have to probably go back to our risk assessment SA 315 statement when we are reporting under this CARO clause. So there are some cases of we have to report on the Benami properties, we have to report on the frauds, we have to report on the materiality, the investments made. So all these, the income which is found in search and seizure, all these has to link to your SA 315 statement about risk and risk assessment. So all these will require obviously the additional audit procedures, more and more specific information from the management. We have to have some kind of additional dialogue with the management, so additional check which is otherwise not directly concerned with the financial statement, which is very important. Right now we were not concerned when we about the internal mails, internal report submission to the bankers. Now we have to look into that while opening the balance sheet as well. So that means more audit documentation. So it's time to plan and prepare the for the CARO 2020. So now we will move to clause-wise analysis on the standalone balance sheet I'm talking about. So on the asset side, if we say PPE, property, plant, equipment, and intangible asset, so it has been bifurcated for your benefit. I have bifurcated these particular requirements. So A, which talks about details of tangible and intangible assets. Secondly, this intangible asset is a new clause, by the way. Last year, up till last year, tangible assets requirement were there. Second, physical verification of his and his discrepancies, which was there, which is carried forward. The third one is title deeds. The new thing is on property on lease. Fourth one is a revaluation, which also new clause, wherein we have to mandatorily get valuation by registered valuer. So amount of change, if it is exceeding 10% of the carrying value of each class, including ROU asset, then we have to report particular statement. Then fifth one is proceeding of the Benami property and its disposal. So what it means, entire thing probably which may not be part and parcel of giving an opinion on the reasonable, true and fair assertion, we have to sideline the materiality sampling, and we have to also see these clauses. So what are the specific audit procedures for complying all this? So for first of all, separate record of intangible assets which were never there. So probably we have to go back to the management and ask them whether there is an SOP, whether all the intangible assets, be it in the patents, copyrights, some of the internally intangible assets, whether they are there, whether there is a separate record for it. If it is not, then the time is there that we had to compile all the data, some of the R&D intangible assets which are there in the books, which are not there in the books. Probably we had to take a call and we had to compile all these. The management has to compile, and then only we had to check that. So whether the lease agreement are duly executed. So title deeds exemption is there only when there is a lease agreements which are duly executed in the favor of the company. So again, we have to go back and see all the lease documents, whether they are properly executed, whether the title deeds are there for own property, as well as where the lease is not there, properly execution is not there, that probably will come under the ambit of this type requirement. Then we have to also see the review of competency and report of valuation in case of revaluation, because they are asking for a registered valuer. So when I'm talking about register valuer, it as an audit procedure, we have to first see whether he is registered valuer, whether he is competent, what are the what are the implications of this particular 10% increase. We have to mindful that whenever there is an Ind AS, there are a revaluation and there is a fair valuation. So probably in my view, fair valuation is not getting covered under this clause. And whenever we are taking a proper revaluation route only, then only we have to apply this particular clause. So on the fourth point, requirements relating to litigation and claims. So when I'm coming to a Benami property and its disclosure, if the notice has been there and we have to disclose particular thing as a Benamidar in this particular Karo, it poses a question about our SA 501, and we have to also consider our SA 250 documentation, wherein we have to say, by the way, SA is standard auditing. Probably some of the people in this forum may not be knowing it, but these are a mandatory auditing standards which we have to follow. So SA 250 consideration of laws and regulation, there is a specific questions on this particular thing. And now we have to also see in toto whether my SA 315 risk assessment is going correct or not. So this is a particular thing which is, this regulators has smartly covered this transaction, and they have pushed us to see something which otherwise is not there earlier. So whenever there are Benami property transaction, you will obviously see, oh, there is a Benami property. What is there? Then we have to also see the characteristics of the management. We have to opine that. We have to frame our risk framework. All this will think when we are saying that, okay, these are the Benami transactions and there is a disclosure. So through this particular clause, we are forced to revisit our risk parameters. So what are the challenges? So as I told you already, need to have item-wise inventory on the intangible assets and internally generated intangible assets. So there might be some questions about the business combination. When there is a PPA, purchase price allocation, there might be some kind of internally intangible assets which are getting generated, and the accounting of it, the record keeping of it will be a challenge. So that we have to fulfill. Yeah, next. So inventory side, so there is no much difference as such, but appropriateness and of the coverage is something a judgmental call which we have to take. So physical verification of inventory at reasonable intervals, which was already there. Now the appropriateness of the coverage and the procedure of verification by the management, we have to opine on the appropriateness. So this is something a judgment we have to take. So for example, in Corona times, when there is no physical verification, there is a challenge that how we have to define appropriateness. When we as an auditor are taking a stock take on a webcam, we have to see whether this particular process is complete, whether it is appropriate. And if at all we find out, okay, this is the appropriate procedure, then we have to also see the discrepancies of 10% or more. So this is a direct question that, okay, if the discrepancies of 10% or more in aggregate of each clause of inventory, then we have to whether they has been properly dealt in the books of account or not. So one view is, okay, let's say, okay, there is a difference of 12%, we are report and forget it. That's not the case. Again, regulator is going to ask you as an auditor, what are your risk assessment? They will ask you what are the additional checks which you have taken to say these financial statements are true and fair. And first of all, they will obviously ask questions on the IFC, internal financial controls, whether they are there, because if the discrepancies is in the tune of 10% or more, there is every chance that this IFC needs to be retested, and we have to take appropriate call on the reporting on the IFC. So the specific audit procedures, analysis and documentation of procedure adopted by the management, that has to be come to us, and then only we can give an appropriateness. Then to check appropriateness, coverage of verification with reference to various factors, as I told you, is very much applicable. And quantification and reporting discrepancies is a huge talk. Some of the cases, there is a perpetual inventory. Now, SCI guidance note has taken a stand that, okay, in case of a perpetual inventory, you have to aggregate all these discrepancies and take numerator denominator approach. So it's quite a huge calculation which I can see, and can see additional mandates going on this particular process. So what are the challenges on this? So defining appropriateness of the coverage is a specific challenge wherein we have to have a judgmental view. We have to be mindful that we are taking a judgment, and then we have to appropriately document this judgment. Then no materiality for reporting of 10% discrepancy. So as I mentioned you, there is no materiality threshold even here. 10% above you have to disclose. Yeah, next. So on a working capital, this is a new clause. Now see the highlighted point or the underlined point here. Whether during any point of time is very important of the year, the company has been sanctioned working capital. Again, they have used the word sanction and not actual utilization. So whenever there is a sanction working capital limits in excess of 5 crores, for large companies 5 crore is very minimal, but still we have to see all the sanction letters here. 5 crore rupees in aggregate. Again, if there are smaller companies and they are availing loan from different kind of a bank, different banks, then from banks or financial institution. So all NBFCs probably are also getting cover over here on the basis of security of a current assets. So specifically debtors, then stock, all these working capital limit, if in any point in time during the year on the basis of sanction terms. So there are multiple companies which have a sanction limits, but they hardly utilize it. Still, this clause needs to be reported. In that case, what exactly has to be done is whether the quarterly, again a potent question, whether the quarterly returns or the statements filed by the company with such banks or financial institutions, if they are filing, and whether these are filed in agreement with the books of account. So a lot of questions on this particular thing. Otherwise, this clause, the internal stock statement, the data statement, which are timely filed or not filed with the banks, whether they are accurate or not, we as a statutory holder were never concerned. As far as the giving opinion on true and fairness, this was not a part of the audit document or working paper per se. But now, with this reporting clause, bankers' interests are getting protected. So what is the specific audit procedures? Then robust verification of the sanction limits for working capital and security against, in addition to utilization. So verification of the quarterly returns. So for say, some of the companies may take a trick that we will file this particular stock statement on 25th of the each month, so that you will never you will never come to the notice that there is a difference between 30th and the stock statement which has been filed, because it was not filed on that particular date. But regulators may do roll forward procedure, and if something goes wrong, they will obviously question us as a Caro reporter what you had done in this particular reporting clause. So what are the challenges? So treatment of rectification effect of shortage excess taken post submission of the returns. For example, there are challenge if at all you have submitted this particular thing on the first or second of the next quarter, but after limited review or after audit there is a change in that particular thing. What to do? We have to discuss with the management. And the timing of verification is obviously necessary, because at the end of the year you can't start this particular activity for the entire year. So this is a big challenge in terms of working capital. Yeah. On the loans, investment and guarantees, again a very busy slide, but I will try to explain this with this chart. So first of all, details of loans or advances in the nature of loan, guarantee, security to any other entity during the year, any other entity. And you have to be mindful that in case of subsidiary, joint venture, associate, they have to be disclosed separately. And then what we have to do? Comment on terms and conditions which are not prejudicial to the interest of the company, and loans and advances and their terms, any investment made and guarantees are getting covered in determining the scope. Third one is terms of repayment and its compliance, which is okay, which is obviously there. It was earlier there also. So amount overdue more than 90 days. Again, a potent question, specific pinpoint question. Then renewal, extension, fresh loan is set in settlement of new loan. Again, a specific question, tricky question, which can give you some kind of a hints on the working capital cycle management. Again, give you some hint on the risk assessment process. Then sixth one is loans and advances without terms of repayment or on demand. So this is again a specific question. Separate disclosure of all this has to be reported. So first of all, here we are going into a estimate or judgment, and this is a very onerous responsibility. We have having an onerous responsibility, and we are to also mindful on this particular clauses when we are dealing with such kind of reporting. First of all, what are the specific audit procedures? Verification of loans or advances, investment. Again, here during the year, along with the contractual terms and condition, in addition to the outstanding balances. So here we have to also see a challenge of interpreting advances in the nature of loan. So typical example would be if I am giving the advance, if the company has given the advance of, let's say, 1,00,000 of rupees, or let's say 1 crore of rupees, and the business with the contractor is just 1,00,000, then probably it may turn out to be a loan, not as an advance. Then additional detail as to the comment on such transaction which are prejudicial to the company's interest. So for example, here we have to also see the interest rate, security, arm's length, probably we have to test. Here one basic thing is whenever large corporations are funding to a startups, all startups cannot be a Baiju. So we can't have every startup as a successful. For example, if you give any funding to a startup and it could not succeed, then the regulator may ask you on this particular questions, what are the call you have taken at the time of reporting on this particular case, whether it was a prejudicial or whether it was a normal. So again, this has to be taken very carefully. So the basic challenge to the NBFC, because NBFC are in this business, but they have to be also complied in this particular thing. Then judgment is required as to whether the terms are prejudicial, and interpretation of advance in the nature of loan are the main challenges, as I told you. Yeah. So on the compliances, there is no much change, so I will not take much slide, but just reference. So compliance of section 180 and 185 and 186, which was already there. Compliance with respect to deposit accepted by the company or amounts which are deemed to be deposits. So this is a new thing, deemed to be deposits. There is a section 73 which also talks about, along with the rules, what are the deemed deposits. So we have to carefully analyze that. Then maintenance of a cost record, carry forward a point from last Caro. So, and statutory dues pending to be deposited and disputed. So I will not take much time because it's a time tested. It was there for last 2 Caros. So on undisclosed income, now this is very new clause. So let's read that clause. Whether any transaction not recorded in the books of account have been surrendered or disclosed as income during the year in tax assessment under the Income Tax Act 1961. And if so, if you have such kind of a case, if so, again, a specific question, whether the previously unrecorded income has been properly recorded in the books of account during the year. So just as a hypothetical case, I'll just take an example. If in some of the, or in one case, we find 1 crore as undisclosed income under Income Tax Act, what normally a company do? They pay 40% taxes, 40 lakhs as a tax, and what you as an auditor see, okay, this 40 lakh has come as a tax expense, and forget it. Now a regulator wants us to comment on this income. So we have to be very careful when we are talking about the income. There has to be a corresponding asset. So it's a double entry accounting. So when we are talking about the income, there has to be certain kind of assets which are not there in books. So if we are saying there is a 1 crore which has been added to income, there might be a probability there might be any asset or cash or current asset or non-current asset which is not there in the books of account. Then as an auditor, what stand we are going to take while reporting in this year, but at the same time we have reported probably a non-qualified report, or we are given a clean report 2 years back when such kind of a income has been generated. So all these specific clauses will again address or again ask us to push to certain kind of audit procedures which are not there earlier, and which ask us to revisit this SA 315 risk assessments. So what is the specific audit procedure here? So robot verification of tax assessment. This is the first and foremost. We have to discuss with the management. We have to take all the details of the tax assessment documents, and we have to also see a copy of statement. What are the additional disclosures? What are the additional search and seizure document? What exactly we have declared, the company has declared, and what are the challenges? As I told you, SA 315 is a challenge, and revisiting and extending the level of audit procedures considering the revenue income being presumed audit risk and fraud prone area. So we have to again see SA 240, again see SA 315, and then most importantly, whenever we are following Ind AS, we have to also see Ind AS for the reopening of the earlier balance sheet and representing the. Yeah, go ahead, Shreya. So on a default by borrower, now this is a category under which we have to also see disclosure of default in repayment for the borrowing from any lender. Here it was earlier financial institution, now any lender. So all ECB loans, all internal loans, ICDs are getting covered here. Then whether the company is declared willful defaulter by the bank or financial institution and or other lender. So this is also a specific clause which they ask. If it is so, we have to report. Then application of term loan and details of divergence, if any. So again, they are not just asking whether you have verified end dues of the term loan. What they have specifically asked is whether there is a diversion. If yes, give that diversion amount. So details of diversion has to be stated. Fourth one is whether the funds raised on a short-term basis. This is a carry forward point. Last year it was not there in last Caro, but before that it was there, so it was well defined. Fifth one is whether the company has taken any funds from any entity or a person on account of or to meet the obligations of the subsidiaries, associate, joint venture. This is again a very specific clause where you have funded to your group companies for the purpose of the obligation to subsidiary, associate, joint venture has to be specifically reported. And the sixth one is loan raised during the year on the pledge of securities held in its subsidiary, joint venture, and associated company. So let's look at one by one. So disclosure of default in repayment of borrowing from any lender. So all the defaults, what is the default has been defined in the guidance note. As per that, the default of 1 or 2 days default probably may escape, but in general, default to any lender has to be reported in this particular clause. Again, if you are reporting under this clause, your IFC or main audit probably, depending on the materiality, has an impact on this clause. Secondly, whether the company is declared as a willful defaulter. If you are your company is a willful defaulter, then probably we have to also see what are the implications, how we are complying with the standard on auditing, SA 250, SA 240. So these has to be seen. Then third one is application of the term loan and details of diversion. Again, this is a specific clause as I mentioned. The term loan which is defined as a more than 36 months term loan, but if there is a diversion, if you see RBI guidance note on the diversion of funds, there are almost 13 to 14 clauses where they have defined a particular divergence statement, how it has to be treated as a diversion. So if you apply all this, there is tremendously, obviously there is a tremendous increase in the manpower for the audit. So fourth one is whether the fund raised on the short-term basis have been utilized for long-term on the basis of balance sheet and the overall cash flow statement. Also, we can have this particular view. So it is time tested. It was there. Then whether the company has taken funds from the any entity or person or account of to meet obligations of the subsidiaries. As I mentioned, probably the subsidiary wants to invest in a step-down subsidiary or other entities. And if you are funding this particular project, then as a holding company's auditor, you have to report these all points. Then there again this particular clause has implications. If you already have a borrowing, then particular banker of a holding company may take objection on the basis of your reporting. So you have another responsibility under this. So sixth one is loan raised during the year for the pledge of securities. Yes, it has been mentioned, and we have to expressly report all these things. So what are the specific audit procedures? Critical analysis of credit rating documents, checking of any changes registered in security held in subsidiaries, joint venture. And what are the challenges? Extensive audit procedure, I already mentioned. Defining diversion of funds, we have to take RBI circular for the diversion of funds, and then it's on the forensic audit, because when we are saying there is a diversion of fund, we have to also prove that. Again, we have to go back to additional audit procedures. Probably this regulator wants us to do a forensic kind of a thing, because we are not only going to use in general, or not only going to opine in general fairness, but a specific diversion amounts from a term loan. Yeah, next. So on the reporting related fraud, now this again sea change from the last Karo. Whether any fraud by the company or any fraud on the company has been noticed or reported during the year. If yes, the nature and the amount involved to be indicated. So for example, if there is any fraud, or first of all, let me clarify, it was there earlier, but it was only of the employees, the fraud by employees, but now every fraud has to be there. So if you see section 447 of the Companies Act, and if you read along with the fraud definition, what is defined under ICAI guidance note, probably it's a huge definition. For example, if a company orders something on Amazon, on a Flipkart, and if that is not come through, it may be also a fraud, because the material has to reach there. So if the particular vendor has not provided a good quality material and you have to penalize it, it may be also a fraud. So there is a challenge to define the fraud. Although ICA has said this, that there is a materiality clause probably we have to apply on the overall material statement on this particular clause, still the audit process is enhanced. So whether the auditor is considered whistleblower complaint, again, all the whistleblower, there has to be a mechanism. The mechanism there has to be a system. Then that system should work, and then on the basis of that particular whistleblower system, we have to opine whether they have considered. So the word consider is again vast word, and we have to also define what it means and how we are going to take as an auditor a consideration on this particular point. So specific audit procedure. First of all, any reported or noticed fraud during the year, SA 240, again, we have to challenge. Then additional and extensive inquiries and risk assessment procedure, we have to also see for the fraud. Then we have to have an extensive dialogue with the management on this business. So there might be different kind of a fraud. So what kind of a fraud which we are going to cover, that intimation has to be given. There has to be a dialogue between the management and the auditor for this particular reporting. So responsibility in this clause is widened. Something, if it happens after 3 or 4 years, you might be catch hold for this particular point, whether you have not detected, if you are detected, why you are not reported, because it is not now restricted to the employees related, it is not restricted at all. Yeah. Next. So on the compliances, end use of the company, Nidhi company, related party, all these clauses, there is no major change. So I will just read out. So reporting related to money raised for use of IPO, FPO, preferential allotment, we have to report. It was there earlier. Compliances related to Nidhi companies, yes, it was there. Compliances with respect to section 177 audit committee and 188 board for related party transaction, it was already there. We have to also see arm's length. Then non-cash transaction with the directors and person connected with him, it was also earlier there. So it is nothing new probably, and no major changes as compared to Karo 2016. Now coming on to the internal audit. So now this particular clause was there earlier, in I think Caro 2013, but it has again brought back. So whether the company has an internal audit system commensurate with the size and nature of its business. So again, we have to be judgmental. We have to opine that whether this particular internal audit system is appropriate and with the size and nature of the business. So as a part of audit procedure, the auditor is required to consider all these reports of the internal auditor before conclusion of audit report, because there is a specific question now coming, the whether the reports of the internal auditors for the period under audit were considered by the statutory auditor. So any red signal, any hint towards fraud, any particular process on the IFC, if it is qualified or if there is a dissatisfaction in the auditor's report, internal auditor report, as a statutory auditor, now I have to mandatorily get cognizance of the particular report. And according to me, this is something will also increase the dialogue between internal auditor and also increase my audit procedures in response to the auditor's internal auditor reports. So we had to have extensive documentation for evidence of evaluating the reports. Then internal controls, qualification of personnel, nature, size, internal audit department, we have to see. When we are taking over, when we are discussing with the internal audit report, we have to also see the credibility of the internal auditors. We have to also see the capability of the internal auditors, whether they are covering all these processes. What are the challenges nowadays? Internal auditors are somewhat moving from a transaction audit to a process audit or the operational areas which are otherwise not affected of financial statement. So there must be some quality improvement areas. All these things we have to run it through from this particular clause, and we have to get we as a statutory auditor have to get satisfied that whether this internal audit system is commensurate with the size and nature of its business. So on NBFC point, so these are specifically for the NBFCs. So I will quickly touch upon this. So whether the company is required to be registered under section 45 IA, it was there earlier. Now see the new clause. Whether the company has conducted any non-banking financial or housing finance activities, any non-banking, without a valid certificate of registration from the Reserve Bank of India as per the Reserve Bank of India Act. So again, a specific question, we have to also see the deeming provision of NBFC, wherein there is a clause of 50% of asset, 50% of revenue. If it is coming through this particular activities, probably although you don't have a registration, and if you are carrying such kind of activity for such magnitude, we have to report under this clause. And once you have reported under this clause, so necessary procedures will follow, probably will follow, because RBI is going to ask questions to the management, why up till now you have not taken the registration. So it has a ramification in the large scale. The third point, whether the company is a CIC company, core investment company, and if it is so, whether it continues to fulfill the criteria of CIC. So what are the criteria of CIC? 60%, 90%, or 90% of the net owned funds has to be in the group company, 60% out of that, 60% has to be in the equity instrument. All these compliances, either we have to see yes or no. We are giving this certification to the RBI where we are having a CIC registration, but this particular process has now brought in the Caro report as well, and it is available to all shareholders. So what is next? Whether the group has more than one CIC as a part of group. If yes, indicate the number of CIC which are the part of the group. So again, we have to define the group, and if there are more than one CIC company, probably this clause has been incorporated on the request of RBI, so as to they are regulators and they want to control and they want to overall see this particular process. So for the regulatory requirements, this particular clause has been brought in Caro 2020. So what are the specific audit procedures? So financial statements to be examined as per the RBI norms of NBFC, as I mentioned earlier. Applicable threshold 50% for deemed CIC, 60-90% for CIC, or 50% for NBFC, 60-90% for CIC. Then verification of the companies in the group as per the master direction of CIC. This has to be seen because there are some specific clauses under CIC regulation 2016 master directions, wherein there is a certain kind of a conditions when you are operating 2 or more CICs in a group. So all this will lead to extensive audit documentation if you want to, comply with all these NBFC related clauses. Again, cash loss. Again, a specific question. Whether the company has incurred cash losses in the financial year and in the immediately preceding financial year. Again, now we are going back to last year. And if so, state the amount of cash loss. Clear, potent message that we have to give a particular amount. We just don't have to give a reasonableness or trueness or fairness. We have to give exact amount of a cash losses incurred during the year. So what are the specific audit procedure? We have to first of all define what is a cash loss, and then we have to arrive at that particular figure and give this. So again, there is some kind of a judgment because interpretation of a particular expense item might have some kind of a challenge. Go ahead. A new clause, a resignation of a statutory auditor. If at all, if the earlier auditor has been resigned and you have taken over this particular audit under CARO 2020, you have to expressly state that you have considered all the issues, objections, or concerns raised by outgoing auditors. So what it warrants? It warrants that this particular clause has come because of the spree of resignation last 2 years. So we can see. So probably this might be a solution for it. The regulators have thought, but now since they have incorporated it, so we as a incoming statutory auditor has to take all the concerns, objections, and issues while dealing with the audits of this financial statement. So as per standard auditing, there is always a requirement that auditors are required to complete client acceptance procedure. This was mentioned in the code of ethics, but now only no objection probably will not be suffice when we have to have additional documentation, a specific request on this particular clause to comply with this clause to the outgoing auditor, that they have to expressly state what are the issues, objections, or concern. This is again a double-edged sword. If we write something and if we receive something, then there is a compulsion that we have to take cognizance of it. If the outgoing auditor is not given anything, probably he may be asked why he has resigned if there is nothing in this particular thing. So it's a double edge. We have to be very careful, very mindful while dealing with this clause and reporting under this clause. Next. So again, this is a new clause. So it's a busy slide. I will just ask, please go ahead with this reading for 1 second, 2 seconds, and then we will discuss. So on the opinion of the financial capability, as I was mentioned earlier, in some of the clauses we have to have have to go beyond our hindsight information, and we have to also see a foresight. So a particular company, how they are managing their business is their call. We as an auditor, we are never used to report this particular thing. Now we as an auditor has to step in to their shoes, and we have to also report what is our opinion on the capability of the management, how they are meeting obligations, although it's next 1 year, but we have to what we have to consider, see one by one. We have to consider financial ratios. We have to consider aging and expected dates of realization of financial assets. So again, going next year, we are opining on the current year financial statement, but also we have to see what is the aging and expected dates. So it mandatorily covers the subsequent event auditing standard. Then we have to also see expected dates of payment of financial liabilities. So other information, so what is other information? Not defined, but other information accompanying the financial statements. The other information in the sense auditor's knowledge of the board of directors and management plans. So we as an auditor, statutory auditor, have to have every knowledge how the board and management is willing to go ahead with their business. So this is something a very, very straightforward question, but we have onerous responsibilities on this particular clause, because in some of the cases, management may not want to share next year plans to the auditors because it's a forecasted information or it's a probable information. But now with this CARO 2020, we as a statutory have asked to report on this particular clause. And what we have to report? No material uncertainty on the date of audit report. Again, on the date of audit report. So if you are completing audit in September, on the date of audit report, we have to take that particular period also in cognizance on the date of audit report regarding the capability of meeting its liabilities. So we have to also expressly see the capability of the entity on the basis of the below mentioned parameters existing at the date of balance sheet as and when they fall due. So all the liabilities, we have to put a matrix. Or in big corporation, it's very, very, very difficult to go ahead. There are some pressing deadlines for this closure of the balance sheets and all. At that time, putting all this particular portion on the paper and discuss it with the management is a challenge. So what we have to audit, what are the specific audit procedures? So verification of liabilities, interest terms, due dates, subsequent payments, testing of recoverability of financial assets, analysis of budgets, cash flow projections, what all we have to deal with. So then what are the challenges? Reporting based on forecasted information, use of judgment, and highly critical in reporting of a going concern. If at all, this particular entity could not meet the targets and could not meet the financial liabilities for what you have reported under this clause.
Nachiket, you are not audible. Hello.
Am I audible?
Now you are.
Yeah. So go ahead. I think we are ahead of the time, so I will just wrap it up now. Yeah. So on the CSR, it's quite simple. So I will just run it through. So amount unspent other than the ongoing project, and on the ongoing project, we have to report it under Schedule 7, whether it is transferred to a special account, whether the provisions has been made in view of new guidelines coming for the CSR, wherein we as a company has to have an obligation, and we have to probably make a provision if we could not spend that particular amount. So yeah, go ahead, Shreya. So on a consolidation, there is only one clause that consolidating auditor has to take cognizance of each and every qualification made by the component auditor. So what it means that we in a group pack sent to the component auditor, we have to be more vocal on these points and we have to get adequate information in time. And that on the basis of these qualification or adverse comment, we as a consolidating auditor has to take a cognizance in this particular clause. Yeah. Go ahead. So I will come to the conclusion now. So the conclusion is summarized in one page itself. So from planning, we have to discuss with the management. Then we have to go back to the risk assessment templates. We have to run this particular CARO before March probably. And the nature, timing, extent audit procedure we have to carve out. Then extensive audit procedures we have to do. After that, we have to also report and the documentation is at most important. All this will lead to additional work pressure, additional dialogue with the management, and let's be prepared. And that is why let's start immediately, not waiting for the year to end. That's it from my side. Shreya, thanks you. Yeah.
Thanks, Nachiket. Chanchal, are you running the poll right now or at the end?
Sir, can we take some questions?
We can take. I can see few of the questions typed on the chat.
Yeah.
So if you can read those one by one.
Yeah. And also I'm launching the poll and reading the question both, sir. The
Yeah.
question is, does CARO 2020 mandate internal audit function to follow financial year as audit calendar?
Not specifically. Not specifically. We are to only see the whether this is a commensurate with the size and nature of the internal audit. So it may not be restricted to calendar year or the financial year, but yes, the overall scope and pervasiveness of the internal audit has to be tested by the statutory auditors.
Yeah, I think that was the only question. And what we as internal auditors are looking into this particular change is how there are two roles for internal auditors. One is consulting and second is the assurance role. So in their consulting capacity, how they can help the management to build a compliance structure which will ensure that the auditors will positively opine on the CARO clauses, and if there are some things, then the verifiability of those documents, records, information, etc. is well established. The documents are complete. If these are system generated, then these are tested well in advance. All those things will follow. So that is one. And second, I can see that many of these things are flowing from the corporate governance related issues which we had in past, as Nachiket mentioned. And I'm really thankful to Nachiket for this very studied kind of session. And we could see that he was talking the literature as well as his experience. So thanks for that, and for additional information of the audience. You may not be knowing that Nachiket is a very good classical singer and has accompanied Ustad Rashid Khan in the Sawai Gandharva Mahotsav and has got blessings from Bharat Ratna Pandit Bhimsen Joshi as well. So thanks Nachiket for being here and having a nice session. If there are few questions still, we can wait for one more minute. If the poll is done, people can log off. We'll wait for 1 minute and then we'll have this conversation concluded. Happy weekend evening for to all, and let us meet sometime next month or next month with your suggestions. If you have specific comments on specific session you want for your benefit, let us know. Thank you. Thanks, Nachiket.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Thanks, everyone. So can we close, sir?
Yeah, please.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.